have no board members, or no applicants.
No applicants, this is gonna be
Okay,
easy.
quick meeting.
Very quick. So welcome to the,
February 22nd.
February 22nd meeting of the York Historic Architectural Review Board. Could I have a roll call, please? Mr. Kunkel, Mr. Skian,
Here.
Mr. Zimmerman, President, Mr. Schirmeyer,
Here.
Ms. McLean Gross, didn't have- Mr. Buffington,
Here,
Ms. Gifford, Mr. Gifford, Ms. Lindsay,
not here.
Lindsay Hinsel, not here. Could I have a motion to consider the minutes of the last time we met, January 25th?
So moved.
Could I have a second? Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion to approve the minutes, say aye. Aye. We have no applicants present tonight. The first case is 120 East Market Street, an application to replace a sign with a new sign. And without someone here to describe it and discuss it, I make a motion that we table the case until someone's present.
I will move that we table the application for 120 East Market Street due to applicant not being present.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion to table, say aye.
Aye.
The next case is 32 West Maple Street.
Talk about the nick of time.
Yes, welcome.
Good evening, gentlemen.
You're up.
All right.
Catch your breath if you need.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
take a second.
Hopefully everyone's received copies of the pictures and the application, of course. Thank you for your help. Just acquired this property a couple weeks ago, and there's issues with the brick in the front. We don't know at this point the extent of the issue. We did apply for a dumpster permit and demo and all that, but we want to take it down. And cost-effective route, I would like to go with siding like the house next door. I did submit a sample of what that would look like too.
I looked at it today. Originally, that was even with the house beside it?
I don't think so. I think there always was an offset. If you look at one of those pictures shows the two houses that you're referring to, the house that would be to the west of it.
Right.
I think that was off an inch or two, I think.
Because it looked really close at the top.
Yeah, yeah,
Down here,
it's a significant
that's-
offset.
a true veneer.
We think so. We think so, because the structural integrity inside is fine. Each floor is level.
Because if it was a double brick wall, like a lot of houses are, there'd be no studs on the inside.
I can't, certainly, which one trying to go to the toe?
Not in that era. Not the age of that house, it was never, it's probably, I mean, and from the looks of it, it's at least a double width, which is 2 layers of brick. It just depends whether, and it's not tied to the structure behind it, obviously, which is why over time it's bowing out. I mean, I've seen that happen before. A lot of those houses on Salem Avenue, for example, that they tore the front off, because one was my great-grandmother's house. And I remember a rental that she lived in for many decades, and I remember my mother saying in like the 1930s, those facades were bowing out. And they lasted another 60 years till they finally put the red X on them or whatever. So I'm assuming the span was side to side, and they were never tied to the structure. Do you know if this is spanning side to side, or if the joists for your first floor, second floor are bearing on this wall?
They do not appear to be bearing on this wall.
They're running from party wall to party wall?
believe so.
Okay, from side to side. So that wall was put up and it wasn't tied to anything, which is what, I mean, they just laid a brick wall up, put the joist the other way and then over time, that thing is bowing out. So that's exactly what, and houses were built like that then, some row houses, and that's, so anyway, long story short, that's what I think the issue is here. So it's not a veneer in the classic sense that since the late 30s, early 40s, you started to build houses with studs with sheathing and one thickness of brick that was stacked up or tied
No,
sometimes
that
onto
was
it.
tied to something.
It's probably it's a bearing wall for the roof.
Yes, you're
Yeah.
right, which is the other issue you're gonna have. You're right, it's not a bearing wall for the first floor or second floor, but it is a bearing wall for the roof, which is the other thing that's adding the weight that's pushing, helping push that thing out, that it's not tied to
Yeah.
anything. And if it's only 2 thicknesses of brick, yeah, and the old soft brick. So the question, so the thing is, you have a structural thing there too, that you're gonna have to take that thing down, you're gonna have to do an interior row of studs from the basement to the first floor to the second floor to the roof, you know, the third story roof, and the roof, so that you're supporting that and then take that wall down.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, shift the
Yeah,
weight.
I'm sure there's not studs in there. There's probably plaster right on the inside of the brick, or there might be a little bit of furring, and then wooden lath and plaster on
Furring
that,
is probably
unless it's
what
been
it's-
altered
what's
or
in there.
renovated at some point,
Okay.
yeah.
None of the people we had at the site have mentioned that yet, but makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, because this was historically a brick house, and unfortunately, it still has a very nice cornice that's intact.
For the most part, yeah.
I mean, we want you to save all of that. You know, you would need to save it, you'd need to kind of restore it somehow. There's
I'm sorry, what is
I
the,
mean, it's missing a bracket that being stuck.
yeah,
chief, what was that word? Cornish?
there's
The
parts of it
cornice.
that are still there.
The cornice up
Yeah, you're missing a
around the
couple
top.
brackets, but the rest of it, the
Is that
cornice,
the,
Roof.
work.
Yeah, up at the top of the second floor. Yep, that's what he's talking about.
and I was before you about 2 years ago with 108 South Pershing, and we did keep the integrity of everything that was up there,
Okay.
so.
I think because it's a brick house, putting it back with siding in the historic district is really controversial, especially vinyl siding. Ones that I've seen this done on, like I owned a house in Lancaster 30 years ago on North Lime Street, there's a little house that had the same issue. And at some point in the 80s, it was bowing out, and they put a new brick facade on it. I think it was probably wood studs. They probably took it down, put wood studs up, and then sheathing, insulation in the studs, and then went back with one thickness of brick. And you could do that again and paint it. It would probably be, you know, the brick's gonna cost you a little more than, you know, putting vinyl siding on there, but you still are gonna have to do something, you're gonna have to do a structural wall.
Well,
Foundation on
I
it
mean,
to
let's
support that roof.
just address the elephant in the room right away. We're not gonna vote to approve vinyl siding.
Right, and that's why I was gonna throw that open to the board, figured
Yeah.
the board wouldn't like that, yeah.
But the house next to it has the same siding.
Sure.
That was a mistake.
And
Not
it's
voted on
likely
by
not-
us.
Is that likely applied to an existing brick behind it though? instead of
Or is it,
down?
was it a wooden house that was vinyl sided?
Yeah, hard to say.
I don't know.
Either way, it could have been done before there was an historic district. Or it could have been done illegally on a Sunday.
On
Understand.
weekends when you don't
And
need
that's kind of a
permits.
standalone house, this is a house that's part of a brick row. So
It
if you
is.
look, there's a gap, isn't there, between the two houses?
It is.
Connected?
Gross
Yeah.
is alley.
Yeah, and then the one on the far end is looks like it was probably a wooden house also.
Yeah, you can see it looks like the asbestos shingles on the side.
Yeah, yeah, so those two are different than, you know, this house, which was part of that row.
Makes
That was
sense.
a brick row, so that's the other issue that we would have with it.
Can the supporting walls become the walls?
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah, you're probably still gonna have to do some kind of temporary shoring.
Oh, yeah, you have to build a jack wall?
Yeah, I mean, what's because you're gonna have to take it down and then put up a new wall that's kind of at the face of where this other one was. I mean, your windows, everything are gonna have to come out. Because you know,
What are your contractors telling you about dismantling the brick?
that it's separate from the structure and that we wouldn't need to do anything structurally. We could go right back up with siding.
Well, it holds the roof.
It's separate from the
No.
floor structure, but the roof is bearing down on it, that's the only thing.
Yeah, I can't argue against that point, but
Separate from the floor structure, but it's not, I'm pretty doggone certain the way they built them then, this is not just one layer of brick that's peeling away from back layers of brick. It could be, but from the looks at the side here, it looks like it's more than just the front face of brick. They usually did, back in that day, they did, on more expensive buildings, they did a backup brick and a face brick. And your face brick was more expensive than your backup brick, and a lot of times your backup brick couldn't be exposed to weather. On brick that was meant to be painted like this, a lot of times they, it was all kind of, might have been the same brick. But then gradually, they replaced that backup brick with, first it was like a clay tile, and then that didn't last long, and then they went to concrete block, sometime around the 1920s, the 40s. So they used to do concrete block backup, and then they went to wood stud. So, but this is not just I'm pretty certain this is not just one layer that is
At least two or three.
on the way. Yeah, there's at least 2 or 3 there.
Yeah, well,
Or maybe the whole thing is going
What do you
out.
call the course that's bricks this way?
You call that a
Bond.
header course.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
you wouldn't have a header course with a veneer.
I think part of your problem is, correct, you wouldn't have a header course with the veneer, and is there even a header course on this?
Yeah,
course?
I'm just looking at it.
Yeah, it's right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it looks like there's a header course every 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, every 6 courses. You have a header course. Yeah.
Because you wouldn't put in little shorties to make it look.
And
like
that's to tie that to the brick behind it.
Right, that ties the 2 layers of brick together.
So they'd lay like about 5 courses, 6 courses sometimes, and then they'd lay, which are like running stretchers, they call them, the long ways.
Okay.
And then they would lay a course of headers, and that's to tie to the wall behind them.
understood.
And they've since replaced that with metal ties and all sorts of other stuff we use now. Sometimes they didn't tie it at all, but I think that's another good indication that the whole brick backup wall also is moving out. Have you contacted a structural engineer to look at it rather than just as your contractor?
No, our hope was, we wanted to open it up and then bring the engineer in.
Okay. You might wanna get an engineer to look at it before you open it up. I mean, Steve ultimately is the one that's gotta give the permit on it, but, I don't wanna speak for you, but you probably don't want him opening anything up till he shores that thing up.
Right,
Or has an
yeah,
engineer tell him
or an
how-
engineer say it's okay to do it without shoring it up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, I think you really need, we're supposing, based on our experience with buildings like this.
Yeah, I appreciate
you
this.
need an engineer to look at it,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Well, I think my effort here tonight is over, but I'll be back.
I think,
I think your effort's just beginning.
I think your effort's just
Yeah.
beginning, yeah, and unfortunately, it's hopefully you were aware there were issues with the property when you bought it.
Yeah, it came at a price. That was a.
Hopefully you got a good deal on it.
Well, that depends on how much we end up having to do here.
That remains to be seen.
I think we can agree to your going back with wood studs, sheathing, some kind of weather barrier like Tyvek, or you don't have to go to zip sheathing, but it gives you better insulation. And then a new single width brick that is tied. And it could be painted, like the brick around it, that brick was always painted. I mean, it's more historically appropriate to paint it than to leave it exposed. So you could do a less expensive brick.
Okay.
The board might even be amenable, I wanna speak for the board, but to look at a thin brick that was painted on wood studs and sheathing, that would look like.
it would
a real
preserve
brick.
the look, even though it wasn't.
Preserve the look, but save you money,
Okay.
yeah.
Application of the same opening profiles as well?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
we wanna,
We
the opening.
need that. These are tight bricks, so.
Yeah, the opening, the size and shapes of your windows, you want your new windows to match that. They have segmental arches, you'd want that. They have like, soldier courses, around the arches, you'd want that. They may even be able to salvage the brick for the window arches and preserve that.
I'm thinking they could preserve a lot of this brick.
They probably could, yeah. They might even be able to preserve the face brick and reuse it.
Okay.
The only thing I'd caution is be careful that your contractor then knows the difference between face brick and backup brick, and they're not salvaging the stuff behind and putting it on the face, or mixing it. Because if it is a true face brick and back brick, years down the line, you'll have other problems with the backup brick put on the face falling.
They
and
expand and
deteriorating.
contract at different,
Water's gonna get in.
yeah.
The other problem reusing the historic brick is you're gonna have to use, from this era, a high-line mortar. You can't go to like Lowe's and get the off-the-shelf modern Portland cement mortar that's like appropriate for buildings built from the 1920s and later, because that mortar would be harder than the brick, and that'll spoil your brick.
That's if the brick is being reused.
That's if the brick's being reused, yeah. So,
We may as well talk about replacement windows, since I'm sure that's probably on your agenda down the road
Those-
as well.
The windows were recently replaced, so unless I had to, I was just gonna
Reuse them.
reuse it.
Good.
That's
Okay.
probably
the
not a bad
ones
idea.
that were done on Salem Avenue, that's not in the historic district, so they unfortunately put vinyl siding on it, and they put windows on them that aren't proportional to the surrounding windows. So they look very out of place
Okay.
in the row, because the row has a rhythm and a look. There's smaller houses in this, but a rhythm and a look very similar to this, but then you have these with very square modern windows.
Okay.
And so they look kind of jarring. So we would want the same window. I mean, if those windows can come out and salvage and be reused,
Yeah,
if not, you
We
could
can
just
do
do a simple like Anderson 1/1, single light window, that kind of thing.
Not vinyl.
Yeah, we wouldn't want vinyl on the front, right?
What was that?
If you're doing a new window, we wouldn't want vinyl windows on the front. We wouldn't approve that.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
if he were to come back, reapply,
Mhm.
stating he was gonna put brick back, would the board be willing to accept a staff review on that?
Yeah, if he's willing to put brick back, preserve the cornice, preserve the shape of the windows and those segmental arches.
Just
on those.
save him a trip back to the board.
Yeah, if you feel you can do that.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that, and we'd be okay with the thin brick.
Provided, I think we can
Keep
duplicate the look
the
of the
arches,
and
yeah,
all.
yep.
And I would paint it. I used to get into this a lot with the consultants, because they would come, when we had consultants, because they would come and say, well, that building isn't, that brick shouldn't be painted, and it's like, no, that brick was cleaned in the 70s or 80s, and it was painted
And it
for
was
all of its
never
life.
intended
It
to
was
be
never intended
exposed.
to not be painted,
Yes.
yeah, and these houses like this were always painted.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so it's appropriate to paint them. Most of the churches in town were painted. So, not all of them,
Learn something new every day.
yeah.
Well, that's why you want to come back. You don't want a staff review. You want to come back to this assemblage here.
As much as I like it here, I have another meeting to get to, but is there any other advice?
You wanna, Steve, do you wanna table, or do we wanna approve with stipulations?
I think approve with stipulations if you're gonna let it be a staff review going forward.
What's the rest of the board feel about a staff review on this?
I personally would like to see what they're doing moving forward.
Okay,
Okay.
I'm good with that.
I would like, I'm sorry. You got other things to do, but,
Well, I'll make a motion then,
we have a job to do.
we table the application pending further structural investigation of the wall.
Okay.
And the applicant will return with a, kind of structural report on the condition and a solution that preserves the current look and brick look of the facade,
I'll second that.
so.
Sorry, I just writing all that down. So we have a motion on the floor to table
If you have to go.
pending structural investigation of the wall with a structural report and recommendations for the build-out process and materials. Is that close enough to what you said? Okay. And a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you for coming in. Good luck with your project. We'll hopefully see you back soon.
Thank you, gentlemen. Look forward to meeting with you.
Take care, Mike.
Okay.
See you, Nancy. Thank you.
All right. I think our work here is finished. Too bad the other applicant doesn't show up, but
You beat me to it. I was gonna vote we deny that first one.
Oh, we can always go back and revisit it.
well,
That should be a fairly easy one, but they never.
The packet makes no sense.
I just don't understand what he's looking to do.
Yeah, yeah. The other one is that, and I had sent, remember, we had that email exchange on the design guidelines and the sign booklet. The sign information looks like, I didn't compare it, that it's in the design guidelines. But I think, this one at Market and Pershing is a good example that applicant should be pointed in the direction of downloading our design guidelines and submitting.
We'll let you explain it to him.
Yeah, I
There's a
shared
huge
that.
communications barrier.
Oh, is there really?
I shared that with the applicant for him to do that.
I think Spanish.
Yeah, he needs to, or is it a he or she? They need to submit an application that meets those guidelines. The city hasn't posted on their site, so there's not really any excuse, other than maybe the city's site should be bilingual.
And they're working and stuff like that,
Okay.
but, yeah.
Yeah,
And he's getting a letter from me saying, take your lights down.
yeah.
Which the only result of that'll be to put them inside the windows and then we can't say
I
anything.
mean, because if they come here with those signs, we'll deny them the signs they put up because they don't meet the sign guidelines, and they may not even meet zoning.
Well, right, but we gotta do it in the HARB and then there's permits and zoning order.
I thought zoning comes before HARB. It used to. I mean, we didn't really ever hear anything unless it went to zoning first.
And what address was that? I'm sorry, I forgot.
Yeah.
it should be to review.
I forget what address that was, but I did share that with him and he was confused. Because, I
Yes,
don't
you
know,
know
his
what
last
she did?
name was.
She forwarded his email to me.
Yeah.
You deal with him.
Do we have any if you speak Spanish, if it's a bilingual thing, do we have any Spanish speakers?
Yeah, we do. We have staff that can.
Okay. And unfortunately, the design guidelines aren't.
store looks like
It's bilingual, they aren't translated yet, but we should probably get a grant to have somebody do that.
Yes.
When they were written 30, 40 years ago, that wasn't a need.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of English speakers don't know that exists.
Oh, I
No,
drove,
no.
I drove by that the other night. That's, well, it's typical of the Vegas.
Yes.
That's popping up all over town like
Where was
that.
it? Where was it?
Where the old junior league is.
Yeah, it's
It's
Market
always,
Pershing. Yeah, it's right across from the gates of Plow.
Used to be the junior league.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what is it now then?
Wouldn't wanna go into.
It's a corner store, bodega, a corner
Yeah.
store.
They all look like that, unfortunately. And when I was.
Not in a hard district, they don't.
Well, no, when I was zoning officer, I wanted to make all the bodega, take all that stuff out of the windows, because not only is it real crazy, but it's unsafe. If they call and say they're the police and they're getting robbed or something,
And you can't see in it.
you can't
Yeah.
see what's going on in
Yeah.
there. So, and I don't even understand what the purpose of that is. I don't.
Sounds like a good opportunity to suggest legislation, an ordinance in the city that would forbid
As
doing
soon
that.
as we get through the
For a
comprehensive plan, then we're
Great,
gonna.
a great thing.
It's sort of like, I mean,
Not the zoning board.
it's sort of like in the late 80s, early 90s, when I lived in Baltimore, and people would, they actually pointed out, and you didn't think about it, but they told people it's actually less safe, your property's more at risk putting up like a 6-foot high privacy fence. Because somebody literally, and it was in the original Northwood neighborhood, and, some of the people who had those kind of fences were broken into because somebody can hide, they can spend all
which side goes in, which side goes out on the fence. Well, obviously, you don't want the ledge on the outside. Everybody say, oh, I want the pretty side on the inside.
Well,
No, you
people
don't.
look at
Somebody
that
climb
side
up over your
expensive and
fence.
fence they bought, yeah.
Right,
Right.
right, yeah, because if you, I didn't think of that, but yeah, you can climb over it, yeah. So anyway, so yeah, you know,
Are we done?
I guess so.
Okay.
Hey, we're getting into baseball season here, so.
Pitchers
Oh, really?